Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my Leica talks, all things Leica. So today I want to talk about a gateway to the Leica. If you want to get into a Leica, but you really can't afford to jump right into an M6 and 3 lenses, like we talked about last time, here's the way in. For $300 to $400, you can find a Leica IIIf, or a Leica IIIc, or a Leica II. But the Leica IIIf, you can find it with a Summarit lens. Now, they made Summicron lenses, which are their branding for their f2 series. But they also made a Summarit before the Summicron. And those don't go for as much money. And if you buy it from somebody who is selling it on a Craigslist ad or a private sale in a local classified group, an OfferUp or a Letgo, you can find it with a lens because that's the way they have it. If you are willing to watch for what comes up for sale in your area, you might find a IIIf. And a IIIf was one of their smaller cameras made by Oscar Barnack. These are called Barnack Leicas. And this one doesn't have the height of the build of the Leica M. And the viewfinder is not quite as big and bright. But it works really good with glasses wearers because I can see the whole frame. And the things you want to make sure are that the viewfinder is nice and sharp and clear. It's not hazy. Some of these finders get hazy, and you can get them worked on and get them clean, certainly, but I try to buy a camera that's ready to go. If I spend $300, I want a camera. I don't want a repair job. The Leica IIIf. Now, if you say, I really want a bigger viewfinder, you can find this is a little accessory viewfinder that you can put on top. And that accessory viewfinder makes it so that you have a gigantic viewfinder. For a person like me who's left-eyed, it makes it so I can still keep this eye open and watch things coming in and out of the frame. Whereas the viewfinder on the left side of the camera, when I use it, my right side is pretty much blocked up because I'm a left-eye dominant photographer. The Leica III is definitely a great gateway in because you're getting the optics that are incredibly good. The Leica III was used by photographers like Alfred Eisenstadt, Henri Cartier-Bresson, lots of photographers, Helen Levitt, who were looking to work with a small camera, and it had just come out in 1934. People were like, I don't have to carry a large format camera and film plates or film holders. I can get 36 pictures made on motion picture film. That's what this was originally made. The story goes, Oscar Barnack had asthma, and he didn't want or couldn't carry those large cameras and the plates. And he wanted a small camera, and they had made motion picture film already, and motion pictures were made on 35mm film. And he thought, if I could get some of that film and make a camera for it, and the way 35mm film works is it runs vertically through a movie camera. And he said, what if I were to make it run horizontally through the camera, and instead of the frame being 18mm by 24, I double it up and it becomes 24 by 36. So the frame size for 35mm is 24 by 36mm. Those are the dimensions of a motion picture 35mm camera with the film turned on its side. And now he could double up the amount of film space to make for a better quality picture. You have to remember when this came out, there weren't a lot of enlargers. When this came out, this was called the miniature camera. This was called miniature photography because cameras were always made with large negatives, and the large negative would just be contact printed right on the paper. And there was a one-to-one relationship between the size of the negative and the size of the print. So if you used an old 6x616 camera and the negative was this big, that was the size of your print. And if you shot 4x5 or 8x10, you often made 4x5 or 8x10 inch prints. But this one, you didn't really want a photograph that was only 1.5 inches by 1 inch tall, so you needed a projector, an enlarger, which could project that negative onto a piece of paper and make a larger photograph than what the negative could be. But the story of how that negative came to be was because a photographer couldn't carry those plates and wanted something lighter and easier. And today we still want that. And this is the camera that made it so that 36 pictures could be shot on motion picture film with a camera that's not much larger than the roll of film. Here's a spool and here's a spool, and the film goes across and that's it. There's not a whole lot to these cameras. He created a way to take 36 pictures in your pocket that was unheard of. And those early photojournalists like Bresson and Helen Levitt and Imogen Cunningham, they all picked up that camera because they wanted something lightweight and small. Vivian Mayer, if you've seen her work, she used a small Leica because it was a way to carry a simple camera and have a lot of photographic ability. Now we may have phones, but phones don't allow you to create what a film camera can create. Films don't give you the tactile experience of working with something that is a joy to work with like a Leica is. The Leica IIIf has the shutter speeds that are similar to a Leica M6. Did I say that right? A Leica IIIf has the same shutter speeds as a Leica M6, of 1 second all the way up to a thousandth of a second. So you aren't giving up shutter control, you aren't giving up any control because you're going with the 3 series or the 2 series, the Barnack series that came before the M series. You're just getting a smaller viewfinder. But on the other side, it also fits easier in your coat pocket because it's smaller. If you don't have this on, you can fit this in your coat pocket. And there is a beauty to why you might want, down the road, you might want one of each. Get yourself an M6, but then also supplement it with a 3F or a 3C. They made a lot of those Barnack Leicas, like this one. If you find one with the self-timer, the self-timer was a later edition, so a lot of them don't have that. If you find one with that, typically it's a later model Leica. And they were able to, you could send your Leica in and they could modify it and upgrade it. So as they came up with new ways of building the camera, they could make your Leica 2 into a Leica 3. It was very component-based, the way they built the cameras and the way that they could upgrade you. But if you find one with the self-timer, watch for that. That's a good feature to get. And I would say the Leica 2s, the Leica 3s, they're all good. The Leica 3G is the one that had a slightly bigger viewfinder, but those are going for 2 to 3 times what the 3F is going for. So I would recommend get the 3F for $300 or $400 instead of the G, which might set you back $800 to $1,000. And you'll still have a Leica. And remember, optics are what made Leica legendary. Sumatar lens. They also made a 50mm 1.5 Summarit. That lens, I'll have on another show, we'll talk about that. That lens was, if you would like a ultra-fast lens and you can't afford the Sumalux, well, that 51.5, now that's a lens to watch for. All right, we'll bring that up next time. Thanks for watching. I look forward to bringing you more Leica talks and all things Leica. Here's the good light.